Okay, so for this quarter, we will be talking about kinematics. Okay? So, sabi ko sa inyo before, yung classical mechanics, yung classical mechanics or Newtonian mechanics, nahahati sa dalawa eh. So, dynamics and statics. Okay, so statics talks about system at rest, and dynamics naman talks about systems that are in motion, right? So under dynamics, sabi ko sa inyo before, dalawa pa yan, no? Kinematics and kinetics. Kinematics is all about motion, while static is about forces and motion. So basically dito na tayo. So we're done with kinematics. So last quarter. So today, start tayo with kinetics naman. Yung motion, but this time we will inquire the cause of motion, which is of course forces, right? So forces and motion. Okay, pero syempre before we talk about forces in relation to motion, i-review muna natin yung concept natin ng force. Okay? Based doon sa natutunan nyo when you were in junior high school. Right? So probably the most common definition of force is push or pull, ano? Pero ngayon, gamitin natin to. Force is anything that changes the state of an object. Anything that changes the state of an object. So dalawa lang naman yung state of an object, at rest or in motion. Ibig sabihin, if an object is at rest, you apply a force. Anong pwede mangyari? The object will accelerate. So it will be in motion. Now, if an object is already in motion, say object already in motion, you apply a force, what will happen? Dalawa pala yung pwede mangyari dyan, ano? Dalawa yung pwede mangyari. Either the object will stop, will be at rest, or the object will accelerate. It can slow down or speed up. Okay? Slow down or speed up. Depending on the force, depending on the magnitude of the force and the direction of the force, of course. Okay? So, if an object is in motion, you apply a force, then the object may stop, or it will accelerate, slow down, or speed up. It will all be depends on the magnitude and direction of the force, of the applied force. Okay? Tingnan nyo to, class, may nakita akong magnitude and direction. So automatic na yan. We know that the force, is a vector quantity. Diba yan? So, vector quantity, ibig sabihin, mathematical object that has both magnitude and direction. Okay? So, again, a force is a vector quantity. Okay? I-review nga natin yung concept ng vectors, if in case lang na nakalimutan. Concept test. Okay? So, two forces daw labeled F1. So, F1 and F2 are acting on the same object. So, ito yung object mo. Say, ito yung object mo. F1 pataas, and then F2 on this direction. Alright? Now, yung magnitude daw, yung value daw ng magnitude ng force ng F1 and F2 are the same. So, F1 daw is equal to F2. Okay? But are at right angles, so perpendicular. The question is this, what is the magnitude of the net force acting on the object? So, ano daw yung resultant, kung naalala nyo yung discussion natin ng first quarter, ano daw yung resultant ng dalawang forces na iyan? Which is, kung naalala nyo before, ito yon, di ba? Okay, so ano yung resultant ng dalawang forces na to? Let's say, F sub R, resultant of forces. Letter A, equal daw yun sa F. Letter B, twice the value of F. Letter C, between F and 2F. Letter D, more than 2F. Okay? So, what's the answer? Syempre, kapag may free diagram kang ganito, madali mo nang malalaman that the answer is letter C. Yeah. C, ano lang naman yan, Pythagorean yan, di ba? Nung sa discussion natin nung first quarter. So, kapag yung dalawang forces are at right angle with each other, mag-form yun ng right triangle. So, kunin mo lang yung hypotenuse noon. Yun na yung resultant ng dalawang forces or resultant vector. Okay? So, hindi pwedeng F kasi mas longer yung side nito. Syempre hypotenuse compared to the other two sides. So 2F, hindi din naman pwedeng 2F. So twice the value of F, di sobrang haba nun, between F and 2F makes sense. Pag nilagyan mo yan ng value, lalo na pag chinek mo. Okay, so loss of motion tayo. Alright, so loss of motion. Loss of motion. Isaac Newton, of course. Okay, so first law. Nung junior high kayo, probably na-discuss nyo na ito, So, sabi dun sa first law, objects at rest remain at rest. While objects in motion will continue to move at a constant velocity. Along a straight line. Unless acted upon by an external force or net external force. Ayun, so yun yung first law. Tingnan nyo to, yung first part ni first law, object at rest remain at rest. Very intuitive, of course. Madaling kumbaga, madaling ma-observe in our everyday experiences. Say, table at rest will remain at rest, of course. Unless acted upon by an external force. Unless you apply a force. Syempre, gagalaw yun, pero yung second part of the second law, medyo non-intuitive. Ibig sabihin, hindi natin na-experience in our everyday experiences. Objects in motion will continue to move at a constant velocity along a straight line. Possible ba to? Objects in motion will continue to move at a constant velocity along a straight line unless acted upon by an external force. So, yun yung second part ng first law. So, paano ko nasabing non-intuitive siya? Kasi hindi mo naman ma-experience Let's say, for example, you roll a basketball across the court on this direction. Taas. On this direction. Ayan. So, syempre, the moment you apply force, the ball will move. It will roll across the court, of course. Syempre, but at some point in time, it will stop pa. 'Di ba? So, hindi natin na-observe yung sinasabi ni Isaac Newton na constant velocity. Actually, hindi mo talaga ma-observe to eh. Na you roll a ball across the court and then the ball moves at a constant velocity. Syempre, walang ganon, 'di ba? Ano usually yung makikita natin? You roll a ball and then eventually it will stop. Ibig sabihin, it will slow down, no? Decelerating ang mangyayari, ano? So, bakit ganon? Ibig ba sabihin yan, itong first law does not hold? Or siguro the better question is this, ano? What makes this ball decelerate? What makes it slow down? Bakit ba siya babagal at some point in time and it will stop? Bakit ba siya titigil? Syempre, ang sagot doon is of course the presence of an external force. The presence of an external force. At ano yung external force na yun? That external force is the frictional force. Okay? So the object will roll, of course. It will move at a decelerating velocity, ano? Bumabagal, changing velocity. So, yan na siya. Pero at this point, it will eventually stop. And why is that? It's because of the presence of frictional force. So, again, meron pa ding external force dito sa in-example ko na ito. Okay? So, yung external force na yon is the frictional force. And this frictional force will make the object stop. Okay ba yan? So, the point is, without friction, the point is this, ano? Without friction, this ball will move at a constant velocity along a straight line. Kung wala itong friction na to, the object will move at a constant velocity along a straight line. So, ibig sabihin, as long as walang external forces, as long as walang external forces, walang frictional forces, then this first law will hold. Okay, provided that there are no external forces, provided that there's no friction, then the first law will of course hold. Okay? So yun, object at rest will remain at rest kung walang external force. Objects in motion will continue to move along a straight line kung wala ding external force, which makes sense. Okay? Kaya natin hindi ma-observe yung, especially yung second part ng first law, is because of the presence of external forces, which we cannot eliminate 100%. Say for example, itong friction. Can we eliminate friction 100%? Syempre hindi, ano? Pwede nating i-lessen, i-minimize yung friction, but we can never eliminate it 100%. So, first law will always hold. Okay, so let us look deeper on the first law. So, sabi sa first law, object at rest remains at rest, object in motion, kagaya ng diniscuss natin kanina. Pero ang totoo niyan, class, pwede nating pwede nating i-summarize yun Right? So, first law. By the way, this is law of inertia, of course. Law of inertia. Bakit ba siya tinawag na inertia? Later on, I will explain. So, kung balikan natin yung discussion, yung explanation ko kanina, yung object at rest remains at rest. Object in motion will continue to move along a straight line unless acted upon by an external force. Pwede mong sabihin na provided na walang external force. Okay? Provided that the net external force F net is equal to 0. Provided that external force is 0. Okay? Then objects will remain at rest or continue to move in motion constant velocity along a straight line. O, yun lang naman yun no? If the net force is 0, then object will either be at rest or in motion at a constant velocity along a straight line. Okay ba yun? Or pwede din natin sabihin to. Yung at rest, pwede natin i-consider to as special case of constant velocity. This will make sense Bakit? Kasi pag sinabi mong at rest, the object is not moving. And what is the velocity of object that is not moving? Ay di 0, 'di ba? Is it changing? Hindi. So 0 meter per second lang lagi. So pwede mong sabihin na yung at rest ay constant velocity. At what velocity? 0 meter per second and constant, not changing. Kaya nga siya at rest So hindi siya gumagalaw, laging 0 yung velocity niya. So pwede mong i-consider that at rest is a special case of constant velocity. Pag ginawa mo yon, then pwede mong sabihin that whenever the net external force is equal to 0, then object moves at a constant velocity. So ito talaga yung first law class or the law of inertia. Okay ba yan? So when the net force is 0, object moves at a constant velocity. Sir, paano yung at rest? Walang problema kasi nga yung at rest is a special case of constant velocity. Okay ba yan? So whenever there is no external force, there are no external forces, if net force is 0, then the object moves at a constant velocity. Okay, so let's have a concept test. Tingnan natin kung nagets tong part na to balikan ko pala muna ito. Yung problem natin ito na discuss ko nung first quarter no. So let's say for example, an astronaut in intergalactic space is twirling a rock. Sketchbook natin buksan. Ayan. So balikan natin tong problem na to kasi somehow it's related An astronaut in intergalactic space is twirling a rock on a string, and then suddenly the string breaks when the rock is at the point shown below. So at this point, na-break yung string. Na-break yung string. So the question is this, which path, A, B, C, or D, does the rock follow after the string breaks? Okay? So after the string breaks, the object will move in this direction, or will it move in this direction, B, or along the tangent on this direction, letter C, or it will go on a spiral outward motion, letter D. Okay? So syempre, based doon sa discussion natin last time, ang sagot talaga dyan is letter C, of course. Correct answer is letter C. Syempre, it will move along the tangent, rectilinear straight line. Okay ba yun? So, syempre, if you're non-scientist, iisipin mo lagi, teka, na-break yung string, syempre, it will go letter D. Ito yung usual sagot ng mga ng mga non-science major, letter D. It will go on a spiral motion. Kasi nga naman, paikot yung twirling, So, once the string breaks, the object will be in a spiral motion, outward, syempre, hindi, of course. It is an experimental fact that when the string break, the object will move along the tangent, rectilinear. Okay ba yun? Straight line. Pero syempre, follow-up question. How will you describe the velocity? Ayan. How will you describe the velocity of the object right after the string breaks? Alam mo na yung direction rectilinear. Ito letter C. Pero how about yung velocity niya? How will you describe the velocity? What do you think? The correct answer is, the velocity is, syempre, constant. Ayun, so constant. The velocity is constant. Because of the condition. Ano ba yung condition yan? Sa outer space So, intergalactic space. So, syempre, ano na yun alam na kaagad natin na walang friction doon. Kasi sa outer space So, walang drag, walang air resistance, walang air drag, walang gravity, outer space of course, walang net external forces. Ibig kong sabihin, walang forces of any kind. So ano yung condition natin doon sa first law? Whenever there is no external forces, if F net is 0, then the object moves at a constant velocity. Okay ba yun? So right after the string breaks, the object, the rock, will move at a constant velocity along the tangent rectilinear straight line. Okay? So gaya ng sinabi doon sa first law. Sana na-gets yun, sir, bakit ulit naging constant velocity? Kasi nga, wala namang forces sa outer space Walang friction, walang air drag, walang gravity. So, the object will move at a constant velocity. Okay? Kung napapanood niyo yung mga yung mga science fiction na movie about outer space exploration, so, pwedeng mag-move yung spaceship nila kahit patay yung engine. It will move at a constant velocity sa outer space. Okay? It's because of the first law. Siguro mapapaisip kayo, sir, paano nangyari yun? Wala namang forces. Paano pa rin gagalaw yung object? Paano pa rin gagalaw yung rock? For example, in this problem, in this concept test. First law, the object will move because of its inertia. Ayun. Siyempre, yung rock, meron na siyang inertia in motion. Yeah? Ano ba yung inertia? How do you define it based from your discussion on yung junior high school? Property of an object to stay at rest if it is at rest, or to move at a constant velocity if it is in motion. So, pag meron siyang inertia in motion, it will continue to move. So, yun yung magpapagalaw dun sa piece of rock. Yung inertia, hindi yung mga forces. Kasi, wala na yung force The moment the string breaks, wala ka ng force dyan Sir, paano yung tensional force? Wala nang tensional force. Sir, paano yung centripetal force? Wala na rin yan. Kasi nga, the string breaks the object moves at along the tangent So, wala nang forces na nag-a-act dyan. Okay? So, the object, the rock, will move by virtue of its inertia. Okay? How about this one? A sailboat is being blown across the sea at a constant velocity. What is the direction of the net force on the boat? So, ito yung wind. Ayan yung wind. Siyempre. Ito yung boat natin. So, a sailboat is being blown across the sea at a constant velocity. What is the direction of the net force? Paano masagutan yan? Letter A, the net force is on this direction. Letter D, the net force is downward. Siguro maalon, up and down yung bangka, Or letter B, towards the right. Yan ba yung F net mo? What do you think? Or letter E, upward ba yung F net mo? Yung net external force. Or letter C, net force is 0. What do you think? Or you can pause the video, tapos isipin nyo and then play nyo. The correct answer is letter C, of course. Net force is 0. Bakit? Kasi medyo tricky 0 net force. Kasi naman, ayun constant yung velocity. Diba? Sabi ko sa inyo kanina sa first law, if the net force is 0, the velocity is constant. So, ganun din. Kapag constant yung velocity, alam mo na kaagad, understood na yun, kumbaga, that the net external force is 0. Okay ba yun? Sir, paano nangyari yun? Kung 0 net external force, ano yung magpapagalaw sa object, sa boat? Bakit siya gagalaw on this direction? Sabi nyo, being blown by the wind So, ang initial reaction namin dyan, being blown by the wind, so may force. Ito yung force, by the wind, Pero hindi constant kasi yung velocity. So, probably, isang force lang to. Isang force lang yan. Probably, this force, I'm sure pala, na this force is being cancelled by frictional force sa ilalim ng drag ng friction ng between the surface of the water and the boat. Okay, so cancel yung forces, 'di ba? Sa vector natin last quarter, opposite forces will cancel each other out, especially kapag same yung magnitude nila, 'di ba? So ano magpapagalaw sa boat kung cancel yung net force? Ay di inertia. Okay? So the boat will move by virtue of its inertia. Meron kasi siyang inertia in motion eh. Yun yung magpapagalaw sa kanya, not this force. Okay ba yun? Kapag mas malakas yung force kesa sa friction dito sa ilalim, then the boat will accelerate. Hindi na magiging constant yung velocity. Sana na-gets yun ha. Pero as long as the velocity is constant, as long as constant to, the net force is always equal to 0. Kapag hindi na constant yung velocity, kapag accelerating na siya, biglang bumilis, ay may net external force ka na yan. At ang net external force mo will be in this direction. Kung mas malakas yung wind, diba? Tutulak sa boat compared dun sa friction sa ilalim. Kung mas malakas to, then magkakaroon ng net external force. Pag pinag-add mo yan, vector addition, yung force ng wind saka sa force ng friction, then magkakaroon ka dyan ng sagot, 'di ba? May net external force kang makukuha. Mag-accelerate ngayon yung boat. Pero as long as constant yung velocity, the net force is 0. Okay ba yan? So the correct answer is letter C. 0 net force. Sana na-gets ha? Okay, so we're done with the first law of inertia. First law. Anong sabi dyan, no? F net is 0. Objects moves at a constant velocity. Okay? So how about the second law? Sabi naman sa second law class, the rate on which the speed of an object change, which is rate of change of speed. Syempre, I'm referring to the acceleration. The rate on which the speed of an object change, or the acceleration of any object depends on its mass and the force applied to it. Ayun. So, sabi dyan, yung acceleration daw nakadepende sa force at saka sa mass nung object na yon. Okay? So, syempre, tingnan mo lang tong equation na to, alam mo na kaagad na kapag mataas yung mass, syempre mabigat. Let's say, mabigat yung mass. Alam mo na kaagad na kapag when the mass increases, syempre, acceleration decreases. Paano mo ma-accelerate yung object na sobrang bigat, di ba? Pag tinulak mo yung cart na punong-puno ng laman, ng groceries, mabagal yun, no? Kapag walang laman yung cart, madali mo maitutulak yun siya. Kapag naman yung force ay mataas, syempre, what will happen to the acceleration? It will also increase. See, directly proportional sila eh. Okay ba yan? So, say for example, I have a string attached to a wall. Spring. Tapos, at the end of a spring, meron kang object M. Object with a mass M. Okay? So, applyan mo tong force. Applyan mo to ng force, yung mass mo. Okay? and then you suddenly release the mass M. After you pull it, you release it, and what will happen to the mass M? Syempre, it will accelerate on the opposite direction. Okay? And then yung acceleration ito would depend on the mass. Mabigat yung mass, syempre, the slower it will accelerate. Yung change of velocity medyo mabagal. Kapag naman magaan yung mass, of course, mabilis yung acceleration. I mean, yung change of velocity, mabilis, mataas. Kapag mataas yung force na in-applyan mo, kapag binatak mo ng sobra yan, syempre, the acceleration will also be greater compare kapag binatak mo lang siya ng mahinang force. Slower lang yung rate of change of velocity. Okay? So, ganun lang naman yun. Pwede mo i-rearrange ito. Pwede mong i-rearrange yan, no? Yung equation na A is equal to F over M. To F is equal to MA. Ayun. So, that's the idea. F net, the net external force is equal to mass multiplied by acceleration. So, ito class yung second law. Okay? Kung ito yung first law, ito naman yung second law. Alright? So, tingnan natin yan. Related kasi yung first law sa second law eh. Tingnan mo. First law. F net is 0. Object moves at a constant velocity. Pwede mong sabihin class ito eh. Pwede mong sabihin sa second law that when F net is non-zero, then object moves at a changing velocity. Pwede mo nga i-interpret ito na ganito eh. Pwede mo nga sabihin na yung second law is actually the consequence of the first law. Kasi, ang sabi sa first law, kapag zero yung net force, objects move at a constant velocity. O what if the net force is non-zero? What if may value yung net force? Ano daw mangyayari? O kapag may value yung net force, hindi siya zero, it is non-zero, then the object moves at a changing velocity. O, nakita yung relation ng dalawa. Nakita yung relation ng dalawa. First law, F net 0, constant velocity. Second law, F net non-zero, changing velocity. O paano mo ngayon i-quantify? Paano mo ngayon i-compute itong change of velocity? O yun na yung equation natin. Na yung F net is equal to M A. Acceleration yung A. Okay. Kapag daw may value yung, kapag walang value yung F net, sabi sa first law, then constant yung velocity. Kapag may value naman yung net force mo, kapag present yung net force, then the object will accelerate. Pag sinabi kong accelerate, either slow down or speed up. Okay ba yun? Depende sa direction and magnitude ng force. O sana nag-guess yung relationship ng first law sa second law ha? Okay, so what's the other idea here? Gusto ko din maintindihan nyo ito. I want you to understand that force is needed to accelerate an object. Okay? Force causes acceleration. Okay ba yun? Hindi mo kailangan ng force to produce motion. Kasi nga, provided na walang external forces, object will move at a constant velocity. Kailangan mo lang ng force to change the velocity of an object, to produce acceleration. Okay? Hindi mo kailangan ng force to produce motion. Instead, you need force to produce acceleration. Okay ba yun? Kung medyo nalilito, imagine mo na lang yung thought experiment, yung object in a frictionless horizontal surface. O, diba? An object at a frictionless horizontal surface will continue to move, will start moving, it will move at a constant velocity along a straight line. Basta't walang friction, basta't walang external forces. Okay? Kailangan mo lang ng forces, once again, to produce acceleration and not to produce motion. O, sana malinaw yan. Okay, so let's have a concept test. O, say for example, an object is being lowered on a cord. At a constant velocity. What is the direction of the net force? Ayun. So, let's say for example, I have a cord, cable, tali, ano? And then, at the end of this cord, I have an object M, and this object M is moving in this direction. Constant velocity. Okay? So, I have a string, I have a cord. At the end of a cord is an object M, and then I lower the cord. Binaba ko siya at a constant velocity. So, question is, Fnet, direction. What is the direction of the net external force or the net force? O you can pause the video, tapos i-play nyo na lang after nyong maisip yung sagot, or ma-analyze yung problem. An object is being lowered on a cord at a constant velocity. What is the direction of the net force? Okay, so syempre, ito ulit tayo, constant yung velocity. Constant yung velocity. So, net force, Fnet is equal to 0. Okay? So, constant velocity, no external forces. So, pag ang sagot nyo is pababa, mali yon kasi yung motion, pababa. Pero ang tanong ko kasi is, direction ng net force. Constant yung velocity. So, net force is 0. So, walang net force. Wala kang bibigyan ng direction. See, net force is 0 eh. Syempre, malilito kayo. Isipin nyo, sir, paano yun? Motion is downward eh. So, iniisip namin, the net external force is also downward. Ay, hindi nga, because the object is moving at a constant velocity. Probably, yung force na ina-apply ko sa kanya on this direction is exactly equal to the force of weight of this object M. Okay? So, equal yung applied force and yung tawag dito, force of weight ng object. So, they cancel each other out. So, the net force is 0. Or pwede mo ring isipin na equal yung force of weight, mg, or mass times gravity, pero gawin natin FW, force of weight, doon sa tensional force on the cord, F sub T, equal and opposite. So, kapag ganyan, syempre, they cancel each other out. What is the net external force? So, the net external force is 0. Although yung motion pababa, pero yung net external force is 0. Walang acceleration, kagaya ng sabi sa first law. Okay? Sana na-gets to how about this one? Let's say same object is being lowered by a cord. Being lowered on a cord. Same object is being lowered on a cord. But this time, ito yung motion pababa. But this time, hindi constant yung velocity. Instead, decreasing velocity. Ayun. Okay? An object is being lowered on a cord at a decreasing velocity. So, syempre, siguro, mabilis ka nag-start and then, binagalan mo yung pagbaba. Okay? So, decreasing velocity. Pababa pa din siya, pero yung velocity is decreasing. Big sabihin, siya, decelerating, So, the question is, what is the direction of the net external force? What is the direction of the net external force? Okay? So, at a decreasing velocity, yung force dyan, na tensional force, o yung applied force mo, I'm sure, kapag decreasing yung velocity, meron kang force na ina-apply pataas. O to experiment, isipin nyo. Let's say you're holding a cord, a string, and then at the end of the string, merong nakataling object M with the mass M, mabigat. Let's say, for example, you're lowering the cord in a manner na decreasing yung velocity. So, syempre, kapag binabagalan mo siya ng pagbaba until it stop, until you stop doing it, I'm sure, nag-i-exert ka ng force pataas. Ramdam mo yung resistance ng object M pababa. Okay? Kasi, mabilis ka and then unti-unti mong babagalan eh. So, nag-i-exert ka ng force upward. Okay? So, kung ito yung force mo upward, yung force of weight downward, maliit lang until it stops. Ma-overcome mo yung force of weight, kaya mo nga siya matitigil. Unless sobrang bigat, hindi mo matitigil yung motion dire-diretso pababa yun kapag sobrang bigat. Pero let's say for example, a piece of stone or a piece of rock. Okay? So, mas malakas yung magiging force mo on this direction, applied force, or pwede mo ring sabihin na mas mataas yung tensional force. Kasi yung applied force mo pataas, matatransfer lang din naman yun sa tension eh. Tensional force ng cord ng string eh. Compare sa force of weight, maliit lang. Right? So, kapag ganyan yung setup, mas malaki yung tensional force or yung applied force pataas compare sa force of weight ng object, kasi maliit lang yung piece of rock papaba, then F net mo, yung net external force mo, will be non-zero. Okay ba yun? It will be non-zero. May value siya. Okay? So, the question is, what is the direction of the net force? The direction of the net force is upward, of course. Upward. Okay ba yan? Upward yung net external force mo. Malilito kayo. Sir, upward yung net external force, pero yung motion downward. Pwede ba yun? Of course. Pwede yun. Pababa yung motion, pero yung motion, yes, pababa. Yung velocity, ayun, tama yun. Yung motion pababa, yung velocity is also downward. Pero yung acceleration, yung manner on which the velocity is changing, pataas. Okay ba yun? So, pababa yung motion, yung velocity pababa, pero yung change ng velocity mo, bumabagal siya eh. Ang mangyayari, yung initial velocity mo mas malaki kaysa sa final velocity eh. So, yung acceleration mo pataas. Okay? I want you to remember this, na yung direction of force, yung direction of force, is the same as the direction of the acceleration. Ayun. So, yung direction of force is the same as the direction of the acceleration. Laging ganun. Kung saan papunta yung force, doon papunta yung acceleration. Naalala nyo yung centripetal force? Diba? Acceleration ay yung centripetal force towards the center. Kaya naman yung centripetal acceleration towards the center din. Kasi laging, kung saan yung direction ng force, same lang lagi yun sa direction ng acceleration. Hindi pwedeng direction of force in this direction, tapos accelerating on this direction. So, hindi ganon. In physics, the direction of the force, the direction of the acceleration is always the same as the direction of the net external force. Okay? Another example. Say for example, in an inclined plane, you apply a force on this ball on this direction, pataas sa inclined plane. Say for example, in-applyan mo ng applied force, let's say for example, you kick it, sinipa mo yung bola. Syempre, it will slow down, slow down. Tama yun, kasi pataas hindi naman yan pababa, pataas yung inclined plane natin Say for example, at this point the object stops. At this point it stops. Tumigil siya sa pinakataas ng inclined plane. Okay? So, sinipa mo yung bola, it slows down, and then at the top it stops. The question is this, what is the direction of the net force? What is the direction of the net force? Diba? Very confusing yan Kasi sasabihin mo, sir, yung applied force mo, F sub A, pataas. Diba? Pero it slows down. So, acceleration, downward. So, ito bang FA ba? Ito ba yung net external force? O, hindi. Hindi ito yon. Hindi ito yung isang force lang to, applied force. Pero hindi ito yung net external force. The net external force will probably the force of weight of this ball. Okay ba yun? Kasi kapag dinrawing mo yung diagram niya, pag dinrawing mo yung diagram nito, yung force of weight niya talaga will be downward. Syempre, lagi naman downward yung force of weight Pero dahil naka-inclined yan, yung force of weight na to, yung force F sub W, yung force of weight na yan, dahil downward yan, mahahati yan into two components. Okay? So, ano yung dalawang component na yun? Ito kasi naka-inclined para kang may Cartesian plane na nakatabingi. Para kang may Cartesian plane na nakatabingi. Okay? So, ito yung force of weight. At ito pa yung isa pang component ng force of weight. Force of weight. Kung naalala niyo yung vector discussion natin before, kung naalala niyo yun, this will become force of weight sine angle. Sine ng angle na to. Magkakaroon ng angle dyan Magkakaroon din dito ng another angle So, anong mangyayari? Pag diniscuss natin yung weight, malalaman nyo na yung force of weight is equal to mg. So, eto magiging mg sin theta. Yung parang component ng vector, di ba? Forces directed at a certain angle will have two components, the horizontal and the vertical component. Okay? But this time, ito ay magiging v sin theta. Horizontal component. In this one, Fw will become mg cosine angle, cosine theta. Yung vertical component ng velocity. Anyway, madidiscuss natin yan when we talk about friction. Ang point ko muna dito is that although sinipa mo siya at an applied force dito on this direction, pero yung net external force ay papaganyan. Okay ba yun? Imagine class kung ang net external force nito, kung ang F net external force is on this direction, what will happen to the ball? It will continue accelerate downward, pabilis ng pabilis yan, which is not the case kapag ginawa mo yon, kasi syempre inclined yung plane pataas so obviously it will slow down, it will decelerate. Bakit? Kasi mas malakas yung force of weight, yung component ng force of weight niya pababa. Okay? Mas malakas yung component of force of weight niya pababa kaysa dun sa inertia niya pataas. Diba? First law, object in motion will continue to move. Dapat pataas pa siya, gusto pa niyang tumaas because it has inertia in motion Pero hindi, kasi meron siyang force of weight na pababa. Kaya hindi magiging constant yung velocity. Hindi rin accelerating pataas yung velocity. Instead, decelerating because of the presence of external force. And this time, yung external force is the force of weight nung ball. Sana na-gets yun ang point ko lang naman dyan, class, yung net force is the same as the direction of acceleration. So, ang net force mo dito, pababa. Ang acceleration mo, F net mo, pababa. Acceleration mo, pababa pa din ang inclined plane. Okay? So, sana na-gets yun.